Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on winged lawyers. I'm going to cover this topic probably for 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know how long it'll take, and I'm going to focus more on why I think this happens and less on let's make fun of the winged lawyers, or let's say they're crappy, or they suck or whatever. I know that a lot of people have been burned by this type of lawyer. They feel like they paid money for nothing, got ripped off, used. But that's not really what I'm going to focus on here. I want people to sort of understand why these types of lawyers exist and why they thrive, especially in the family court system. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to say that they aren't as bad as they are, even though I really do feel like they are. This is going to be another settlers versus litigators video, I think, where I try to sound diplomatic, and sometimes I just can't because I'm trying to tell the truth. So what winged lawyers do, if I haven't made it clear, is they show up to court. Well, first off, they do the bare minimum on your court papers. And usually they'll have a paralegal prepared, or they'll copy paste a bunch of stuff from a form that they've got kind of already built. Take out chunks of law, paste it in there, put your name in, a few other little details, sign it, file it, and they'll just go to court and just wing it, shoot from the hip, play it by ear. I think I mentioned those in the beginning of the video, but if not, take whatever saying, take your choice, take your pick of your saying. And they kind of just hope for the best, put on a good show, and see what happens. And they can be quite theatrical, and they can sometimes make people think that some of them can really make you feel like they fought for you because they tried so hard and they wouldn't back down, and the judge just ruled against them. And I get some of these people who come and ask me for help. I'm like, well, did your lawyer bring up this and this? Did your lawyer bring up that? And they're like, no, and they kind of get deflated and they realize, oh. And I have a couple of cases where I've got people actually figuring out how to do research. This one guy, he found like 6 or 7 cases that completely contradicted everything that he thought because his lawyer was just telling him a bunch of lies. I don't know if the lawyer knew. Maybe the lawyer just didn't know, and out of ignorance, just told him those statements that weren't true. And this guy went and did his own research and found out, holy crap, my lawyer didn't know anything, but he sure put on a good show. Anyway, I wanted to get to the point of the video, which was why I think they do what they do, and especially why I think it happens in family court. I think that these lawyers don't see a point to doing any of the research. I think that these lawyers don't think that you're going to appeal, that they might think that the appellate process is stupid, doesn't make any sense, it's cryptic, they don't understand it, it's a waste of money. And if the appellate process is pointless, then why bother doing all this research and trying to control the lower court? Why bother citing the briefs in the law? Why not just try to just speak naturally and hope the judge likes me and rules in my favor? And it's a problem because I feel like that might be how it starts out, but I feel like with these lawyers, it starts to transition to the point of thinking that the appellate process is pointless, to thinking that if you want to go that route, something is wrong with you as a client. You shouldn't want to appeal. You shouldn't want lots of legalese to be put in the briefs. You shouldn't care about that. You should just care about being, and I'm kind of using an example of child custody court because this is where I think it's more, the winged lawyer is more pervasive. You should just care about being a good parent and not try to win on what they perceive to be technicalities. But they really aren't technicalities. It sounds like a technicality to somebody who doesn't understand it. But when you go and you look at the cases and you read them, it's actually logic. I'm being so abstract right now. I'm not giving specific examples, but there a lot of the things that seem like they are technicalities and procedural nonsense and stuff, when you actually look into it, it does make sense, and it can cause issues. In this particular, I guess I'll bring up one example. In the particular case of the guy who went and did his own research, he had a case where there were 2 cases open, a child in needs case and his custody case. And in his particular state, there was a whole bunch of statutory language that just talked about what a child in needs was and who had jurisdiction when both cases were open and all of that. And his lawyer didn't really know any of that. His lawyer went into court and tried to argue that he should be able to have primary custody of the kids based on what all these witnesses were saying and these reports were saying. And his opponent's attorney brought up a statute. She said, or I don't know if it was a she or a he, the attorney, but let's just assume a she. She said that under the child in need statutory scheme, my client has a right to have some time to go out and get some services and become a better parent. And so therefore, you can't transfer the child to the other parent because this is a child in needs case. And his lawyer tried to kind of say, oh, well, the judge didn't side with us. I can't believe that happened. That really sucks. I guess you lost. And when I talked to this person, I was like, that doesn't sound right at all to me. That sounds like he tried to argue custody in a child in needs case. In Nevada, these are called abuse and neglect proceedings. I immediately said, did you, bring up maybe the issue that you have a child custody case open and maybe try and do it in that case? And then there was a lot of back and forth with the attorney about how child in needs cases, once they're open, the custody case doesn't have jurisdiction. And then it started to get more and more legal, more and more technical. And at this point, I was like, you have a wing it lawyer. He didn't do any research. He doesn't know how any of this stuff works. And it's to the point where, in my opinion, it's like the lawyer thinks, well, none of that should matter. And if you're saying it does, you're wrong, and I don't care, and I'm not going to try and help you. And I guess I don't know how well this guy is doing. I don't know if he's twisting his lawyer's arm successfully, or what into using the cases and trying to cite the law and actually control his outcome. But all I can say is this is just a prime example of a winged lawyer. He didn't really look into anything. I mean, he looked about skin deep into everything, went to court, talked, made a big show out of everything. And when he lost, one of the first things a winged lawyer will do is say, well, I tried and the judge didn't agree. And it's just it's a cop-out because you can control the outcome if you can do the research. And when people hire an attorney, they expect the attorney to do the research. People expect their attorney to read and learn the law and help them with those complicated issues that they don't understand. So anyway, I feel like I got way off on a tangent there, but that was kind of where I started. Was that it seems to me that winged lawyers just don't see a point in doing the research. The other aspect of not seeing a point in it is their client doesn't have the money to pay for extra time going into their case. So in these situations, and it happens a lot in child custody cases and divorce cases where people just don't have a lot of money, the lawyers feel like this is not going to be something that my client could sustain for very long. So I'm not going to do all this research on it. I'm just going to wing it because they don't have enough money. But I mean, here we go again with my feeling here is that it might start out that way and they might charge less for a little while. But I kind of feel like eventually these lawyers over the years sort of shift into this area of doing the same minimal amount of work, but charging all of this money as if they would have done a lot of work. So, I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if they were winging it and they charged a whole lot less money because they weren't spending time on it. But what it seems to me is that after a while, these lawyers start to just charge as much as they would have charged if they would have done the research, but not actually do the research. And it's like, now you're not getting what you paid for, and you're getting ripped off because the lawyer is just winging it. Winging it in family court can work with really, really simple issues like child support where both people are working and custody's already been established. An issue like that is so simple and straightforward. It's formulaic. I can understand winging it in that situation more. But any kind of complicated, complex, quirky, weird situation, and that is not a good idea to have that kind of attorney because the judges just won't know what the law is because they tend to pretty much only memorize the really common over and over again repetitive situations, judges won't know what the law is, and they'll either guess or they'll just believe the other attorney, even if they're lying or wrong. You know, sometimes another attorney won't lie on purpose and they'll be wrong. They'll sincerely think the law is a certain way and they won't get it right. Just because that attorney will seem like they've done more research and the winged lawyer didn't. And so, I mean, it can really hurt you in those types of cases. I've seen some really weird things from winged lawyers, like they won't understand how attorney fees work in child custody cases. They'll assume that if they lost, they have to pay them. Their client has to pay them, and they won't know that there's a lot more to it than just that. They won't understand how imputation of income works. They'll assume that if you're underemployed, then you have to, you know, impute the income, when really there's 2 or 3 more things that they have to consider. And I think one of the biggest things about winged lawyers is they learn the law based on what other lawyers are saying. So it's sort of the rumor mill, or even a game of telephone almost. They'll hear something from another attorney, whether it's in court or outside of court, and they'll think that must be the law, and they'll argue that in court themselves, and then other winged lawyers will hear them and they'll think that's the law, and you end up with these really weird things going round and round in the courts, especially in the family courts, that are not right at all, but so many winged lawyers are out in the hearings just floating around, just kind of believing what each other are saying, that the judges start to believe it too. One example here is the civil versus criminal contempt confusion. There's a lot of winged lawyers and a lot of attorneys who think that civil contempt applies in civil cases and criminal contempt applies in criminal cases, and it's not where it works at all. The whole point of the whole way civil versus criminal contempt works is that if you're trying to coerce conduct, it's civil. If you're trying to punish conduct, it's criminal. You can have criminal contempt in a civil case. You can have civil contempt in a criminal case. It's just one example of what the heck is going on. It's all these winged lawyers just started to talk to each other and wing it in court so many times that they all just started to believe the wrong thing, and nobody checked them. Nobody checked up on them. The judges believed it too. So anyway, that's just one example of where that can get really kind of crazy. Honestly, the worst thing about it is if something goes wrong, you can't get it fixed on appeal. And most people don't figure out that their lawyer's winging it until it's too late. They've lost their case. They went and did some research on their own. They found out there were all these other things that their lawyer could have said. Some people just don't even bother. They just quit. They lost and they just quit. That's it. They're done. But other people actually go and look into it, and they realize, wait a minute, my lawyer should have brought up this, this, and this. And now they can't appeal it, because if you don't know, if you haven't seen my video standard of review or my other video record on appeal, you can't appeal an issue unless you raise that issue and you made that argument in the lower court first. So your winged lawyer didn't do any of that. And again, most of these lawyers think there's no way my client's going to appeal. They're too poor and appeals never work. So I mean, in their own head, they kind of justify it anyway. They think, well, what's the point? Why does it matter that it didn't cite any of that stuff? It's not like you're going to actually file an appeal. You know, it's that attitude that, and of course, I don't think they would say that to anyone, but it's sort of probably something that's in the back of their mind, maybe even instinctively or subconsciously. That's what they think without having really looked inward and figured that out. Ultimately, I want to say that winged lawyers are the worst types of lawyer you can hire, but most of the family lawyers, even if they're not fully winging it all the time, some of them are winging it half the time. And the ones that don't, the ones that do all the research and know what they're talking about, the ones that believe in the appellate process, they just might cost so much money that you just might not be able to get one of those lawyers. So I really can't end this video saying, you know, if your lawyer's winging it, fire him and get another one, because some people just can't afford that and they need at least some kind of representation. At the very least, I hope that this video brings up a disturbing trend that I've seen in the family court system, and I hope, and of course this is a legal nuts and bolts video, so I'm covering lawyers from, it's not just for family, but it is where I see it most often happen, because that tends to be where very few appeals are done in the first place. So that type of lawyer who wants to avoid appeals is going to gravitate right into family court because there's almost no, at least comparatively speaking, there's almost no appellate review. Nobody's really watching anyone down there. And of course, because also that just tends to be the budget of most of the litigants. They can't afford it. Of course, I'm not saying that's an excuse. It's not they shouldn't be doing that, but and especially if they're not giving you cheaper prices. um, you know, at least people know that this is a thing, and that's one of the biggest reasons I do these videos is to at least people, you know, let my viewers know that this is a thing, this does exist, this does happen, so that you can make your own choice knowing that this is a concern. And also, as I mentioned, I kind of try to help people understand where the thinking comes from. I don't want people to think they're just pure evil, because I don't think they are. I just think it's just kind of over time, over the years of maybe them working in that area, that might just, you know, based on all the things I said in the video, I'm not going to repeat them, that kind of just ends up being what creates that type of lawyer. I don't think it's just that a lawyer gets out of law school and he's like, yeah, I went and did all these years of schooling to go to court and just wing it. I don't really think that's how it happens. I think it's a sort of over time, over the years, they sort of evolve or devolve into that type of lawyer work and that type of work ethic, and it causes issues in cases. And I really think most people don't even have a clue that this is. I think most people think that that's what lawyers do. They go to court and they argue and they talk. And really, from what I've seen from a guy who's won 4 appeals, that doesn't work, at least not for a pro se. Some lawyers get away with it, and it's really sad. They have a license, so the judge just believes them because they went to school, they have a license, and you don't, so the judge is not going to want to believe you no matter how much work and research you've done. I've been there. I've had 4 decisions reversed. I've won 4 appeals, and I'm not an attorney. So, I mean, I've figured this out. Having gotten where I've gotten, winning doesn't come down to putting on a big show, at least not for me, not for a non-lawyer. Winning comes down to doing all your research, telling the judge the applicable law, and if the judge gets it wrong, filing an appeal. And that's just, it's like completely the opposite of what wing it lawyers do. I don't wing it at all. I mean, it's just so risky, and it relies on luck way too much. I mean, any kind of case, no matter how much work you do, it's going to have an element of luck. But to widen that and rely on it so much just sounds nuts to me, because I mean, so much is on the line. Your rights are on the line. It's kind of crazy too, because for people who hire an attorney, not only are your rights on the line, but your money's on the line. And so I don't know, for me, that just doesn't make me happy to think that I could pay so much money to an attorney for him to just wing it. And just, I mean, to me, that kind of cheapens the value that they see in the case and in me. And maybe for some of them, that's what it comes down to. If you're not rich, you're not worth a whole lot to them. They don't care. You paid them a $5,000 retainer. To you, that's a lot of money. To them, it's peanuts. So they don't care. I don't know. I'm gonna stop this video from going on any longer. If anyone wants to post in the comments below if they had an experience with a lawyer who just winged it, and you know, help other people with your story, feel free, go ahead and post it. And I hope that this isn't an issue that too many people have suffered through, but I have a bad feeling that it is. So with that, I'll go ahead and end this video.